Every brand tells a story. And they are the storytellers. The Sutradhars. They present a brand with band, baja and barat to you. They are the Brandwallahs. He is the co-founder and chief technology officer of one of India's leading digital healthcare platforms. Gaurav Agarwal co-founded HealthKartPlus, which evolved into 1MG in 2015 and later became Tata 1MG after its acquisition by Tata Digital in 2021. Gaurav began his career at NetApp in Silicon Valley. He later joined Zynga, one of the world's foremost online gaming companies, before eventually moving back to India. Gaurav currently serves on Tata 1MG's board, runs its consumer businesses and shapes its overall business and technology strategy. He is our Brandwallah. Watching the Brandwallahs, I'm Krishnakumar and we are in conversation with Gaurav Agarwal, co-founder of Tata 1MG. Gaurav, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on the Brandwallahs. I'm going to begin by asking a very, very simple thing to you. How do you build, this business which is as old as the hills? I mean, a pharmacy. It's been existent everywhere for the longest time ever. Just that with digitization, it gets moved online, and so many things can be done because of that. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, you are building a pharmacy business, a pharmacy brand, isn't it?
We like to believe that we are not building a pharmacy online, and we think it's a little more complicated. Pharmacy is, of course, the largest part of our business, the most apparent. Most consumers need to take pharmacy more than any other healthcare need per se. But 1MG started with actually a very different idea, which was, people don't need medicines or tests, right? People need to get better fundamentally, right? When we are sick, we want to get better. And medicines, doctors, tests, whatever else you may think of are basically just tools along the way. And our at least foolish, our foolish intent at the time, which in hindsight wasn't as foolish, was that what if we could move away from these tools of the trade and actually focus on how do we get customers better, right? And what we started with was what we called at the time, and still do, was an integrated healthcare platform, where we said that, when someone is sick, what if we could build a platform which was not just medicines, not just tests, not just doctors, but basically everything put together? And what if we could take a look at healthcare as a life cycle journey? Pharmacy is, of course, a very, very important part of that life cycle, but at the end of the day, it was a life cycle. And I think that wedge of idea has actually helped shape our brand in many ways, because we are not building a pharmacy. We are not just taking what existed offline to online. We are fundamentally rethinking what pharmacy needs to do for a customer's life when a customer is sick, right? And that's how we're thinking. So when you start to think of it that way, the creative freedom that you start to get in how you communicate the brand,
and also things which usually get people worried.
Yeah.
Like, you're unwell, and hence you go to get healthcare, or you go to a pharmacy.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the same dilemma that insurance companies face. When they want to project their brand. How do you do that? It's something morbid at the end of the day.
The brand is morbid, and so people don't like to be reminded that they are unwell, right? And if you look at our primary consumer segment, which is, let's say, what we call quote-unquote chronic customers, right? People who have a lifestyle condition like a diabetes or a hypertension. I don't want to be reminded that I have a condition, that I need medication, right? I want to feel feel and behave like a normal human being. I have a life, I have interests, I have, play and fun, etc., right? I feel that what we have learned is that when you superimpose this non-wellness personification of a user that you're sick, right? And here I have a potion for you to have. It doesn't really go well because what you need to appeal to is a user's sort of higher need of, hey, I'm a human being. And so bringing in humor, bringing in a larger brand persona, eventually you still need to get the user to take an action, right? Like go to my platform, get 15% off or 10% off and order medicines. But how do we change the communication to think about a larger identity is really important.
How did you arrive at the first ad campaign or marketing campaign?
Yeah.
How much back and forth was there when you're saying, okay, this is what we're going to do with this?
Yeah, very tough, very tough. And we are two, we were three, we are now two co-founders of the business, right? And if you look at 1MG's sort of leadership team or the early team, we were all sort of engineers, product guys, etc. Fundamentally,
nothing to do with marketing.
Nothing to do with marketing. I think we understood customer persona really well. We were very curious, inquisitive, so we liked to dive deep. We were technologists at heart, so we knew how to build for scale, etc. But we were not marketing guys at all. We had our likes and dislikes. There were things we liked, things we disliked. And when the brand became a certain size, we said, okay, we have to go on TV because that seems to be the largest top of the funnel that you can drive. And we picked up the phone, we said, how do you do it? And they said, well, there are these things called media agencies, they come, they pitch, they tell you. And so
literally like marketing 101.
Literally, it was literally like that, marketing 101. And so, Prashant and I sat in a conversation, we called a bunch of agencies and someone came in with, some famous actor being a Ravan who's out there to take your life and, Ravan is offset by this medication.
I would have loved to have been a part of that pitch meeting.
Yeah. And and then we had competitors, right? We had competitors who were doing campaigns on TV, like high decibel campaigns. I don't want to take anyone's names, but they were like, save a lot of money and dancing on the screen. They're just trying to make a morose topic less morose, right? And we said, look, this is not our brand because we are not the dancing on the TV kinds. We think that healthcare needs to be less morose, but I don't think it's a dance on your hospital bed, kind of thing. And we also didn't think that it was a Yamraj coming to your home, taking a life away, and medication coming time kind of thing. So we were thoroughly confused. We were like, yeah, this is not our brand. And typically when we face such a situation at 1MG, we actually go back to the basics and we say, like, can we find someone who can actually teach us about this? And from there originated what our brand persona was, which is, bringing care to health, right? That it's health, but somewhere in health, this notion of care that we deeply care about, each individual. You're not a number or a user ID for us, but an individual who has hopes, dreams, aspirations, right? How do we bring that forth? And then that's how the brand was built. The first brand campaign actually didn't do very well, to be very honest with you. But we learned a lot, right? We learned a lot. We learned that what messages resonate, what don't, etc. And the second, third campaigns actually did really, really well when we brought on Pankaj Tripathi as a brand face, and we did like very tongue-in-cheek like humor, but also very sensitive at the same time. So that's how we did it.
Tell us about that campaign or that particular advertisement that you thought hit the nail on the head and did the job for your brand.
We wanted our brand to always be very approachable, right? Someone who gets you, someone who's in your life every day, but also sort of in the back, right? Doesn't get in your way. And we did a personification. We said that we want 1MG to be almost like a sage, right? There to give you advice, but not in your face the whole time. So the brand campaign, it was many years ago, the brand campaign played on 1MG. So it brought this limerick called Bharosemand hai ji, it's 1MG, right? Which became this thing that people remembered. And then we had Pankaj Tripathi doing like a bunch of things. So what were the messages, right? It was very important for us to get the messages through. The messages were that, it's on time, it's authentic. The messages were that it's reliable, right? These are, again, the reasons to believe in a brand, especially in healthcare, don't change, right? But we changed the delivery, right? So Bharosemand hai ji was someone being on a jogging thing saying, I've ordered medicines, and person saying, aayega hi nahi, kabhi aati nahi hai, right? And then the medicine company is like, Bharosemand hai ji, it's 1MG, right? So those were the kinds of tricks that we played with the messaging and the scenery to get it through. Okay, so that's one campaign that any particular ad of the Pankaj Tripathi series that really thought you thought was the best? I remember there was this ad where if I remember correctly, there was a wife getting maybe an item, and she was like, ki ye asli hai ki whatever, and then Pankaj Tripathi comes in, does a tongue in cheek and says, Dawai aayi hai, Bharosemand hai ji, it's 1MG, right? Because authenticity is such an important thing in medicines, right? Yeah, okay. So that's an ad that I remember really well. So apart from communicating everything else, it also communicates authenticity. Right, absolutely.
On that note, if I were to ask you, is there any one particular advertisement or marketing campaign or brand campaign that that sort of inspires you even till today? Something that you probably grew up with, or something that you saw at some stage that totally stayed with you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's many, and I think that campaigns that are simple, like I remember the Fevicol campaign. Oh my God, insane, right? And I still remember in Snatches there was this murgi that lays an anda. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Yeah. The guy basically picks up the anda, tries to break it, doesn't break, and next to it is the Fevicol ka anda in which the murgi, right? So that was one. I think there was a Fevikwik ad where this guy goes to a lake, puts Fevikwik on a stick. Then there's this...
He gets the fish.
He gets the fish, right? Then there's the Happy Dent ad. I don't know if you remember. It goes back to like an old time, dusk is setting, it's going to be night soon, and everyone starts to eat this Happy Dent and then smiles and suddenly is bright. More recently...
That was from the series, isn't it?
That was a series.
Things with just the
that's right. So those ads, I think they were heartfelt, right? They brought a smile to your face. They were, of course, all ads are trying to sell something, but they had a way of communicating, almost like an aspirational, purpose in a way, or an aspirational thing in a way.
Yeah, as they say, they communicate some of the most complex things in the most simplest of ways.
Nike, for instance, just do it, right? I think amazing ads, yeah.
Okay. We are talking about this at a time when it's the multi-platform age. Some will say it has always been the multi-platform age because there's always outdoor plus radio plus newspaper plus TV. But now today you have digital and social media added to that mix, and that in fact replacing some of the traditional forms of advertising. Talk to us about your marketing mix per se. Where do you put your money?
Look, we use TV very, very sparingly.
Okay.
Because so here's the way we think about marketing, right? Every channel, if you feel, every platform, every channel has certain characteristics, right? So if you look at television, for instance, it's huge, large. You can reach maybe 200 million people or more, but it's also very leaky in the sense. Who sees your ad, you can't control, you don't have real-time stats. There are some platforms and tools out there, but they're not anywhere close to what performance channels can get you. Call to action becomes very, very complex, right? And then on the other extreme, you have, let's say, targeted ads like performance marketing, right? Where you can show a strip, someone can click, you can track it all the way. The challenge is that this channel is large, can help you reach 200 million people. This channel is very, very effective. So typically, the approach we take is we like all our marketing to be as measurable as possible, which means that we typically don't go to larger top of the funnel channels. very, very frequently, because we are also, for a variety of reasons, very focused in who we target, how we target them, etc. Right, so that's one. So if you looked at our marketing mix in any given year, we are spending most of our money on performance channels one way or another, right?
What percentage would you say?
I would say 80% of our spends happen on performance channels.
Okay.
Right? And then depending on, maybe not 80, it's changed, maybe 70 to 80%, right?
Fair enough.
And then
I'm just looking for a ballpark.
Yeah, and then what we do is that we are starting to take more, when we go off performance, we again go very targeted. So we do city, for instance, we do city activations. So out of home has become out of home, and digital TV has become like a huge part of our marketing playbook now, right?
Okay.
So going to YouTube, for instance, going to Hotstar, for instance, getting not IPL, but getting some, let's say, digital TV slots. And then the last bit is, large campaigns across.
So before you go any further, let me get this straight away.
Yeah.
So about 20% is spent on traditional forms of advertising across platforms?
Across platforms, yeah.
So I'm sorry, which means that how much do in that sense, do you do newspaper ads? What is your percentage of newspaper ads?
Very infrequently. So before we go there, let me just explain how we do marketing, right? So 1MG is a very hypothesis, test, learn, and then reapply kind of a thing. So when we do anything, so for instance, newspaper ads, there was a time when we said, okay, we will measure the effectiveness of newspaper ads for our business, because every business is different, and what every business can get out of newspaper ads is different as well. So what we did was we said, we will do newspaper ads for, let's say, 6 weeks, 12 weeks in a row. In fact, even before that, we said we will do one newspaper ad. We did one newspaper ad, we spent a lot of money, did nothing, did we squat, right? So we said, okay, clearly this is not the right approach. So we went and spoke with people and said, yeah, karna hai to you have to do it repeatedly. So we said we will do 6 to 8 weeks of newspaper ads, we will do it across cities, etc. In fact, we did it for longer. And then we said, let's measure what happens. And then the measurement tricks, the moment you go to a newspaper kind of a thing, it comes through brand lift surveys, top of mind awareness, aided, unaided, etc. And what we've seen is that for our kind of business, actually newspaper doesn't do enough, right? And what you can get through newspaper, you're better off actually spending on a performance channel.
Marketing is not what it was before AI happened.
Yep.
Advertisements are not what it was before. Nothing is what it was before AI. It's a pre-AI and post-AI world. Talk to us in terms of how do you use AI in your own efforts to build a brand?
Pitch generation, ideas generation, right? Things that you used to have agencies come. I'll give you like a really specific example. Typically, you would have pitch generation be done by agencies, right? Someone would come, pitch, this is what the brand, right? I like to do that now by actually giving it 10 different links of, hey, to ChatGPT saying, hey, these are all the campaigns that 1MG has done in the last 2 years. And I actually have a conversation like a pal. I'm still not at a place where I use its suggestions verbatim, but it gives me ideas that are like 5-minute conversations versus, let's say, a 1 month, schedule agency pitches, do presentations, etc.
Okay. So, Gaurav, tell us what, according to you, is the big buzz as far as the world of branding and advertising and marketing is concerned?
Yeah, in my view, the big buzz is, of course, AI, and that your brand is everywhere. There used to be a time when brand was maybe controlled communication once a month, but I feel brand is omnipresent now. How you communicate to your customers, what message you put forward, and brand is almost reputational AI driven now. So in my view, that's the big buzz, and I think that brand is virtual rather than a lot of brands going to become virtual. AR, VR, etc. How do they come in? And how do they get your brand out? I think these are going to be like fundamental game changers in brand going forward.
Okay, so that's the big buzz. So which means that I also want to ask at this stage, you also do have offline stores as well,
yeah.
right? So how do you strike that balance between online and offline?
In what way? Like the brand balance or the business balance?
The business balance and the brand balance, both.
Look, we were an online first company that went to offline, right? And we are very clear that 1MG offline is a personification of 1MG online, which means that if we said 1MG online is integrated healthcare platform, then 1MG offline is also integrated. So if you go to our retail store is not just a pharmacy, it does diagnostics as well. In fact, in some of our retail stores, we are saying, what does integrated care mean? So in some retail stores, we are testing our eye checkups. In some retail stores, we are starting to test, hearing checkups. In some retail stores, we are saying, okay, chronic condition checkups. In some retail stores, we are doing nutritions, etc., etc. So we're almost of the view that a retail format needs to be rethought from a healthcare perspective, right? That it becomes almost like a community center that you go in, and medicines is just one of the things that you can get, right? But when it comes to the full plethora of healthcare offerings, you should be able to either get educated, talk to a qualified person, right? And walk out better educated than you were when you walked in, right? So that's the view that we take with our retail stores.
Okay. Then tell us what, according to you, is completely overhyped in the world of advertising and marketing and branding, and hence, according to you, is quite blah.
I don't know if I'm qualified to say what's overhyped and as a result what's blah. I feel one of the things that we don't do well enough is to understand, like you asked, how do multiple platforms affect what my marketing strategy is? And I feel that too often this jump from, hey, I need to grow, let me get to television, is just too quick a jump, which doesn't have enough hand-holding, suggestions, support, coaching, mentorship along the way. So I feel honestly that's a lot of blah.
Doesn't have the legs to take the brand.
Yeah, it doesn't have the legs to take the brand. And it happens too soon for many brands. It happens too late for many brands as well. And in my view, it doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't get supported with data, etc. And I honestly feel that it's controversial, but I feel that the traditional marketing role maybe doesn't exist anymore or will cease to exist. In fact, I'm a big believer in what I call is growth, right? Because if you look at most businesses today, they don't operate from one channel. They don't operate on one platform, right? So if you look at 1MG, we operate sometimes on the phone for a customer, sometimes on the app, sometimes offline, sometimes actually through our partners, insurance companies, etc. Right? You need to look at how do you grow across these channels, right? So it's not a marketing problem, it's a growth problem. And there's a role that your product plays, there's a role that your customers play, there's a role that television plays, there's a role that social media plays, right? And so I feel that the classic marketing role may not have much muster for a long period of time. And it
already doesn't actually.
It already doesn't.
Yeah.
And we're also starting to see like non-traditional people actually become, like 1MG for instance, for its scale doesn't have a marketing person, right? Between my co-founder and I, between Prashant and I, and our team, we actually seem to manage quite well, and then we get expert support here and there.
And then you also have ChatGPT.
We also have ChatGPT, absolutely. In fact, not just ChatGPT. If you're not happy with ChatGPT, you can go to Grok, you can go to whatever, Claude.
I was just using that. It's like Xerox.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just
you have so many options. You have so many options.
Yeah, so many options too. Fascinating. In that sense, if I were to ask you, what is the one thing about your job that you absolutely love the most?
You know, I feel actually there's maybe more than one thing. I think impact is what.
Now, I'm asking one thing because the one thing that makes you, want to get up in the morning and come to work and do your job.
I think the impact is crazy. It's frankly very stressful, frustrating, challenging. But even affecting one life when they are in the middle of this thing called the healthcare conundrum and helping them with one thing. Could be 1MG, could be indirectly through 1MG connects, contacts, etc. I think it just makes up for everything. So I feel in healthcare, the kind of impact that you can have is just unparalleled with any other industry. And that frankly what gets me up every day.
Wow. The other question then.
Yeah.
The one thing about your job that you don't like, for the lack of a better word, that you hate the most.
I just hate the grunt work, but unfortunately there's no way to get past. I wish there was an AI which could do the grunt work and I wouldn't have to just trudge along. A large organization is complex to run. There are so many moving parts, communication between them, etc. It's challenging to make it all work. I wish something or some tool would make it all go away and make it very seamless. The grunt work is actually figuring out the specifics of getting from idea to, let's say, execution.
Okay.
Right? And I just want that grunt work to go away.
Is it because a lot of people are involved in this from idea to execution, and dealing with a lot of people is what you're calling as grunt work, if I'm not wrong?
No, it's not just people. I think it's not just people. I think there's a lot of breakages in communication. There's incomplete tool chains, right? Like information flowing from one place to another, inefficient. There's a lot of lack of information as well, right? We don't operate in a perfect information world, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what really complicates as an organization gets bigger, because the seamless flow of correct information becomes harder and harder the more touch points you have in any organization.
All right, fair enough. I guess we can continue chatting like this forever, but
yeah.
We're completely out of time here. Gaurav, thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you so much.
Here
Thank you so much.
Brandwallahs.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.